Okay, so now I think the last one that you have to do is with the brush tool. Usually what I do with the brush tool is just to either take a photo and really concentrate onto one part of the photo, either to make it brighter. Like let's say that you have a photo and that your subject is really dark, or well, not really dark, but it's just missing a little bit more brightness into it, or it's missing a little bit more details, and your surrounding is something that's really distracting, and you can want to make it darker or whatever. So in this case, I wanted to show you also, like if I look at this photo, I'll go to the develop module, which is this click over here. As you recall, we did actually a crop tool into this one. And if you see over here the history, like if it's closed, just open that, the history. Uh, as I said, Lightroom, what is nice, it doesn't destroy anything that you have done. So if you look over here, I scroll over and you can see all the steps that I've done so far. Okay, I exported twice actually. Okay, so in this case, if I go to the original picture, which is still on my hard drive, as you recall, this is the one that I save as a JPEG. This is the original picture. So I get to this one, and let's say for a particular reason, I just want to have maybe the dog a little bit brighter than the rest of the actual photo. So there's two ways you can work with it. Either you isolate the dog, or you just work on the entire environment. So for me, I think I much prefer to say I will just work onto the dog. So I click and drag it over here, make it bigger. So you can change the size over here. It says fit, fill, 1:1, and then 3:1, which would be really, really big. And just use the brush tool. Click onto this. So what is this doing? It's creating a mask. A mask means like, okay, I'm going to protect some part of the photo, and while the other one's going to be changing. So in this case, I do not want to change this guy. I just want to make sure that this guy stays the same. So in order to make it stays the same, you have to make it like, I'll make it a little bit brighter so you can actually see what's going on. Okay, so the size of your brush, don't forget, you can always change the size of your brush with the two brackets that we call. So this, if you don't know what the brackets are, that's onto your keyboard. Just above the enter, you have the left bracket and you have the right bracket. So if you go to the right brackets, it's going to make it bigger. And if you press on the left bracket, it makes it smaller. If you hold on the shift and do the same thing, like if you go to the right, watch what's going to happen to the inside. Oops, not that way. But if you look onto the left side, it makes it smaller. The smaller the outside ring is, the more precise it is. But it's sometimes better to have it like this big to have a little bit fade off. So you click anywhere you want, and you just what you do is you just start to paint. You're going to see like right away, if you look closely, it starts to make him brighter. And whatever the actual brush where the X is, the cross is, that's where it's only going to start to modify this part over here where the brush is. So I'm just going to do a really big job over here, not really precise, but just to show you what you can do with the brush. I use it very often to actually put more light or more, like even though it's like I just let go of my mouse, it's still going to work onto this kind of layer that we can call it the mask. So you can go in here, okay. So now, if I look at it over here, if you click on that little, or you keep your mouse onto that little button, you can see, okay, well, oh, you missed completely over here. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to paint this over here. And then you keep on going like this. It's a lot of work, but it's worth it when you do maybe some precise job onto a special subject. So, oops, maybe the legs a little bit over here. And if you do a mistake, like if you go up, I'm going over here, just press onto the Alt key, and it's going to subtract what it is. So I'm going to go back to over here. That looks pretty precise. So now if you can see, what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to put it back to fit, is that if you look at the picture right now, I can go to make the exposure specifically on that part of the actual photo. Or I can make the brightness and all these kind of stuff. And if you double click on this guy, it doesn't affect. So in this case, that's what we call it for the brush. So now, if you want to see the before and after, you can just say, okay, well, that was the before, and this is the after. Before and after. And then when you put it on, you click outside of that, okay? And now let's say, okay, we want to keep it that one. I'll show you another one. It's just like, okay, I'm going to make this over here. Again, that will be a different, or I can go and work back on this layer if I want to. Or I can just go and just say, I'll create a new one, okay? And this time, I'm going to make it darker. And I'm going to make a really big size of a brush, okay? and I'm just going to start to paint around this dog. So just paint over it. You can make it more and more if you want to, bigger and bigger. That doesn't matter. I'm just showing to you, like, yeah, that's why I love so much of this guy. Okay, so if I go in here and I click onto this guy, I think I forgot, yeah, this part over here. Okay, and then you can go back and see, well, I want to reduce this size, and just press on the Alt key and just see, you know what, I don't want to affect my dog. Okay, and now I get a better picture. Close that, and now if you want to see, this is the before and this is the after. So that's really drastic. It's not really big, a really nice job, but it's just to show you that the brush tool, you can actually change part of the picture. Sometimes you want to make sure that your character or the subject is really bright, and the other part is not as bright, or it's going to really focus onto this part. And then you can just say, okay, yeah, this is really bright. So I would actually go back and darken this area to make sure that this dog is in the bright part. So that's as far as the brush tool, which is really a cool thing. And while we're at it, just to show you, this is a gradient. I work with that a lot when you have a blue sky, and I can actually just go in here instead and just use this guy just to show you. So if you click and drag into this, it makes a gradient, and you can see right away is that, oh, I can hold on to shift to make sure it's straight. It kind of makes it sort of a gradient that's going to make it darker to lighter. Okay, so if you would see just the actual picture of it, it's just that it makes the sky a little bit nicer. This is what the gradient filter does, and I love it just for the blue sky. Sometimes it's not rich enough for me, or it's too bright. You can use this tool, gradient filter, and it makes a good job at it. So there you go for the actual brush and the actual gradient. Very easy, really fun to use.